St. Cloud, Florida. Unlike the century-old Confederate monuments that dot the country, the granite obelisk in this Orlando suburb is modern and glistening. Just 13 years ago, the great-great-grandsons of Confederate soldiers gathered around a banquet table at Fat Boy's Barbecue, and voted unanimously to build a modern-day monument down the street in the city-owned Veterans Park. The memorial they had in mind would bear Confederate symbols and names of Confederate soldiers buried in or near the city limits. It would also be a near-mirror image of one dedicated in 2000 in that same park by a group of great-great-grandsons of Union Army soldiers. When we saw the Union Monument go up, it seemed only fitting that we also have one, said Al Massey, commander of the local group of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. If the city's residents vote to take it out, so be it. What irritates me is when outsiders come in and force the issue. The current debate over Confederate monuments largely centers on towering, decades-old statues erected during the Jim Crow era, such as the monument to Robert E. Lee in Charlottesville, where torch-wielding white nationalists protested once more on Saturday against its planned removal. Building monuments to the lost cause, however, is also a contemporary phenomenon that many see as an extension of the nation's debate about race. At least 50 smaller Confederate monuments have been built since 1990, including a bronze statue near a courthouse in Cleburne, Texas, and a tombstone-shaped monument on the grounds of a public elementary school in Prattville, Alabama. Even Union states have them. 2 Confederate monuments have been erected in Iowa in the past 12 years. Newer monuments are popping up mostly in rural towns, and tend to laud foot soldiers rather than Confederate generals and political leaders. All but 7 are in Confederate states and 60% are on public land. They're often small enough that they can be easily attended by one person with a step ladder. Some are obelisks, like the one in St. Cloud, while others are stone markers that resemble oversized tombstones or boulders decorated with bronze historical plaques. A majority of the monuments are financed by local chapters of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Most cost less than $5,000, paid for with money raised with chili cook-offs, bake sales and Civil War reenactments. We don't need something massive to do this, said Michael Landry, who is executive director of the National Sons of Confederate Veterans. We want to put up a lot of these across the country. Members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans say, the tributes are meant to honor their ancestors and other Confederate soldiers who they believe fought for noble causes. As they describe it, the North was invading the South, and the soldiers were fighting to defend their homes, their land and their families against invaders who pillaged their towns. Most Civil War experts say this distorts history, pointing to the Constitution of the Confederate States of America and other documents from the time that show the war was primarily driven by a goal of preserving slavery. The smaller monuments allow local groups to continue to promote the Confederacy without drawing a lot of attention, several Civil War historians said. The shift to building monuments to foot soldiers instead of the generals is also a calculated move, they said. One of their defenses is, we are honoring ordinary people, said James Grossman, executive director of the American Historical Association, a professional organization of historians. But they know what they are doing. They are paying tribute to the Confederacy, and the cornerstone of the defense of the Confederacy is slavery. In St. Cloud, the opposing monuments reflect a quiet, Cold War that has been brewing there for decades, rooted in the town's complicated, unique history. Florida may have been a Confederate state, but St. Cloud was founded in 1909 as a retirement community for Union veterans. The Grand Army of the Republic, a fraternal organization of Union Army veterans, bought a defunct sugar plantation and organized a land company, selling lots for $50 apiece exclusively to Union veterans. The land for Veterans Park was also donated to the town by the St. Cloud's Women's Club, a group of Union wives that really wanted to civilize the town, said Olive Horning, curator of the St. Cloud Heritage Museum. The town's logo still identifies it as Soldier City. As with many places across the United States, particularly in the South, the state of Florida and St. Cloud passed laws and ordinances after Reconstruction that discriminated against blacks. Even in recent years, The city and local businesses maintained visible vestiges of this past. The public cemetery was segregated for nearly 100 years, and the grass often grew high in the black section, on a parcel owned by a civic club, until the city began to regularly mow it 10 years